say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I am the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void live here on Fringe FM, KTLK, digital broadcasting. Tune in, TalkStream Live, everywhere you guys are listening from. Live 365 at fringe.fm. Thank you guys so much for listening. So it is Thursday, the 29th. These weeks go by so quick. It's crazy, man. Now, hopefully I got the camera a little bit better on YouTube. I stayed up all night last night fiddling around with plugins and all kinds of stuff to try to make the camera better instead of looking like a freaking anomaly when I get on here, you know. What's up, Jane? I want to give a shout out to the Domek family too. I know they're down for his dad's funeral and they're taking care of that. Bro, we love you, brother. All the good vibes and all of the good stuff that we can send to you and your family, man. Yeah, love you. What's up, Sir Wolf? So tonight I wanted to get into kind of finish up the live broadcast week with some stuff from Muldoon, but also an explorers session where they talk about gravity. And the only thing that I could find in the Muldoon book was about the discovery of his falling dreams, which was a pretty interesting thing. It's something that we all have, but the sensations that we have when we fall have a lot to do with the astral body. And so I'll kind of get into that a little bit, and we might broadcast a little long tonight. So if you're lying in bed doing whatever you're doing, maybe we will, because I told you guys I was going to cover that Explorers project where the guy talked about gravity, and I intend to do it. So lots to take care of. There is lots to talk about, lots to do tonight. So thank you guys for joining us wherever you're listening from. Also, I have a new partnership with DEK Consulting. and you'll see the number and the email, hopefully in the description. I'll be getting that out too. I'm working on my earth element, trying to get my shit together. So if you need to get your shit together too, DEK Consultants where it's at. So that's going to be like my second home kind of thing that I do. You know, rocket money don't work, guys. I mean, it does. You can look at where all your money's going, but you really need someone to sit down with you and help you go over all this stuff and help you do your books and those kinds of things too. So it's a good service. All right. So let's get into this tonight. So the falling dream side of this thing, and how Muldoon discovered falling dreams. Again, you got to remember, this guy writing about this stuff in the 20s, I guarantee you, people gave him a crossed eye, you know. But he says, when I was a small child, I was in the habit of going almost daily to play with a friend of mine about my own age who lived nearby. And he lived in a very large house, a square frame building, usually high, for it was built on the top of a mound. On the roof, which was flat, there was a railed-in porch which was accessible by means of a flight of stairs in the attic. And many times, we tried to go on to that roof porch, but each time my friend's mother foiled our plans. Then came a day when this sentry was off duty. We were playing soldiers and went out to the roof porch, which we called the lookout mountain. Isn't that cute? You know, to watch out for the enemy. For some time, I stayed near the center of the porch, but after a while, I crawled on my hands and knees over to the edge, and pushing my head through the upright pieces which held the railing, I looked downward. I grew dizzy and seemed impelled to jump or fall to the ground. You ever get that sense of like when you're on a place that's high up that you want to jump off of it? You know you shouldn't, but you still get that. It'd be stupid to, but you still get that feeling, right? So he says, I looked downward. I grew dizzy and seemed impelled to jump. Had not the railing been there, I believe I should have done so. But in a moment, I became scared, frightened. And I crawling back toward the center of the porch, made an immediate exit and came down to the house and outdoors once more. I was always afraid to go on to the high porch after that. Even to think of it now makes me feel unsteady. About a year later, I began to be troubled with his falling dreams, and every dream was identical. I would dream that I was floating directly over my friend's house, always directly over the spot where I'd crawled from the center of the edge of the porch. And in the dream, the instant I reached the edge, exactly where I looked down the day we played soldiers, I would begin to fall. The instant I bumped the earth, I would awaken with a jump, a jolt. Always in this dream, I was full grown and a uniformed soldier. I had experienced several conscious projections then, when one night the dream recurred. I was floating over the house where my friend lived, and this was about 7 years after we had played soldiers on Lookout Mountain. Isn't that cute? Right? We used to do that when we were kids too, build forts and stuff, right? But the floating did not seem to startle me so much this time, and finally I stopped directly over the spot where the falling always began. I was not falling this time. I was lying still in the air at the edge of the roof. That's freaking trippy. I was becoming conscious slowly. When conscious enough to understand, I found that I was projected in the astral body and was lying in the air directly above the physical body, approximately 3 feet over it. It will not be out of place to add here that one can move downward, the dream, a great distance. Apparently, but in reality, the drop of the astral is but a very small part of the distance. So here's the thing. What's up, Mike? What's up, Marla? Sudi? Dutchie? What's going on? So when we get that fallen sensation, what we're really actually doing a lot of times, so we'll separate from the body. Our astral, our etheric double will float above the body a little bit. And then we'll go out and dream or whatever. Well, it doesn't really matter what we're dreaming about, these visions that we're having. When we feel a falling sensation, like in our stomach, I think what he's saying is really that's you either, we're about to find out, but that's you either about to fall into your etheric double or your etheric double falling into your body. And that's why you feel that rush of energy. So he said, it was then that I understood the significance of falling dreams. And during that part of the dream, when I was flying over the house, do a technical check here real quick. Okay. Just had to make sure. Yeah. I had to make sure the radio station was, there we go. We're in the radio. Sorry about that, radio people. We're here. So we're talking about falling dreams. So it was then that I understood the significance of falling dreams. And during the part of the dream when I was flying over the house, the astral body was above and to one side or other of the physical. A scintilla of consciousness had come, and I was actually floating. The sensation of floating came with this flash. The emotions were aroused. The cable began to pull. He's talking about that astral cable again, right? The cable began to pull the phantom to move through the air or fly to a position directly above the physical. So here I was dreaming that I was on the very edge of the roof porch. As the phantom lowered, the dream would be of falling. As the body repercussed, consciousness would return. And this explains the phenomenon of falling dreams. So to go back to where we started, astral body activity can incite a dream of floating, flying, or falling. And the dream can stir up the emotions. And the emotions will activate the physical and cause that astral cable pull, which is that rush that we feel, right? Interiorizing the phantom. The phantom, anytime I say phantom, remember I'm talking about the etheric double. And the whole interiorizing may be said to come from one fundamental cause, which is emotion. Actions, sensations, dreams, sounds, they are all contributory factors to this emotion. Emotion itself can be, one might say, positive and negative. So if the sensation be pleasant, the emotion will be affected likewise. You know when you have good dreams, right? So this may be said to be positive to exteriorization. But if the sensation be not pleasant, the emotion will be negative. So usually what causes negative emotions while the etheric double is floating is the process of awakening. So if we were to experience a dream of floating while the astral body really was floating, and this dream was of something pleasing, something that we enjoyed, say, of being an aviator or flying or whatever, the sensation would cause a pleasant emotion, and consciousness would not be so apt to intervene. So this is where your consciousness intervenes in your dreams, right? So in such a state, the subject would have a pleasant flying dream, and the astral would be induced to move out rather than in. And this would be an emotion positive to exteriorization or exematosis or whatever. So flying dreams are often recalled as pleasurable. And I've got a close friend who experiences very pleasant flying dreams. The flying, he says, is so real that he, when physically awake, can almost feel himself leaving the ground. He states that in these dreams, he always seems to be several feet from the earth, moving over the heads of others. The common explanation given by psychologists for flying dreams is that they are caused by the rising and falling of the chest. But you and I know different, right? Like when we have a flying dream, we know different than that. We got two mics. What's up, Mikes? Got the twitches last night. It's hard to make it through some without falling asleep. That's cool. Totally cool. So the psychologists say it's the rising and falling of the chest, but Ellis and others point out that such dreams cannot be accounted for by respiratory action alone, maintaining that one would have to lose the sense of contact with that on which one reclined. So nervousness is a noted symptom too. Walsh says this, quote, epileptics sometimes have the sensation of lightness and of rising into the air. A patient asserted that just prior to a convulsion, she felt as if she rose right into heaven. The sensation of rising also occurs to some dying people, leading to the idea that they're being carried to heaven. So one individual's dying words are actually, quote, don't let them take me, keep me down. He was probably feeling this floating sensation, right? What's up, Jamie? So theories can be advanced till doomsday to account for falling, floating, rising, and flying dreams. And one investigator suggests that the falling sensation is a relic of prehistoric days and represents experiences and memories carried over from our monkeyhood state. I mean, that one takes the prize as being the most preposterous, he says, that I've ever heard. Another prevalent belief is that the falling or the falling dream merely symbolizes a fallen woman or a fallen soul. That's a pretty trippy explanation for that kind of stuff, right? But Muldoon says that the underlying cause of most aviation-type dreams is found in astral body phenomena. This movement, which the astral body is undergoing when the dream is being impressed, determines the type of aviation sensation that is felt. If you will keep in mind the route the phantom takes in exteriorizing, it will be much easier to grasp the relation of astral projection to the aviation-type dream. Remember that the astral body moves upward into the horizontal position, so it just rises up, a little bit. Then it either uprights above the physical or moves off to one side, right? So sometimes it'll stand up or it'll just start sliding to one side or the other. And even when it slides to one side or the other, for some time he says it might start uprising. So this latter operation is not uncommon and is still more common for the astral to move upward in the horizontal for some distance even. And I've even heard people tell me that like their astral body will float all the way to the roof, like all the way up to their house. So, which is kind of trippy too. Mine usually gets stuck around the ceiling somewhere. And if you listen to Robert Monroe's books too, he has these sensations of where he's stuck on the ceiling, or he was stuck in the ceiling fan one time. This was his etheric double. One time his etheric double actually came out of the body just barely, just barely came out and was breathing on the back of his neck. And he thought for a moment that some dude was like on the back of his neck, He thought a man was on top of him going, like some creepy crap, right? He said he could feel the stubble of his beard and all kinds of stuff. Until later, he realized that it was him. It was his etheric double. So still another activity is this. The astral moves to a given height while lying horizontal, then moves off several feet to one side slowly, then reverses again and moves back to a position directly above the physical, and then out again, all the while lying parallel to the earth. So if you could observe the countless astral body activities or astral projections, you would be impressed by one outstanding feature. So while the phantom is within chord range activity, this feature is repetition of movements. He says it has always impressed me as being very like a mother allowing her child to go to some place. The mother subconsciously allows the child or the astral body to go a short distance away from her and then brings him back. The child is allowed to go farther and further, coming back each time, and eventually the child is allowed to go such a distance that his mother can no longer call him back or outside the astral cord activity range, and the child can do as he pleases. This makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. So, however, after a while, his mother will come after him and bring him home again. But the subconscious, like most mothers, sometimes permit the child to go away from home without repeatedly calling them back. Remember that, right? He also, like that magnetic pull when you come out of body, he describes it as like some big giant holding the top of his head and keeping him still and not letting him go too far off. And that's almost exactly how it feels. When you come out of body into your etheric double, you feel this pull that's constantly, it's not strong enough that you can't fight it. But the closer you are to the body, the more it wants to pull you back towards it, right? It's pretty crazy. So he says, fear causes many falling dreams, and one can be lying horizontal in the air and have a dream. Not of being in the air, but just an ordinary dream where he is frightened, although he may not remember the dream. The emotion which the dream arouses becomes so intense that the interiorization of the dream body begins, hence the falling dream. So One member of my family only a short time ago had such an experience. She had first dreamed that the house was being robbed, and one of the burglars was going to shoot her. And she became so terrified that the emotion speeded her dream body back into coincidence, the coincidence with her body. And she experienced a falling dream as this action took place. So there's these types of falls. There are distinct ways in which the astral body interiorizes, whether the subject be conscious, unconscious, or partially conscious. In other words, 3 falls. There's the spiraling fall, the straight fall, and then the slow vibratory fall. And sometimes the astral comes in from the side, but this is not a fall. This is something different. The first 2 we experience in our falling dreams, and the third one we undergo every night during sleep, and is the normal method of interiorization. So when we vibrate back into our body, most of the time we don't feel it. We just don't feel it because we're not conscious, so we wake up, right? So in the spiral drop, the astral body falls with a spiral motion while there's repercussion, and it is not of the more violent type, such as accompanies the straight drop. However, the sensation of the actual spiral drop is very unpleasant, much more so than the straight drop. And so he goes on to talk about the astral cable. So when the astral cable begins to draw down the floating astral body, if the latter through subconscious will spontaneously or incited by emotion in a dream, be suddenly thrown into a condition where it's pulled by gravity, also a straight drop results with a violent repercussion. Now, I myself can tell you guys that, like, the only time I used to experience fallen dreams all the time when I was a kid, but the only time that I do it now is when I'm trying to, like, get out of the dream. So when I'm trying to escape, or I'm in a lucid dream and I can't wake up, right? I just can't. I'm like in one of those false awakening things that you can just never get out of. That is the only time I will escape a dream and try to fall. I'll purposely try to do it. So here in this Explorers project that we're about to listen to, the Explorer MDG is going to discuss gravity. I guess we have some mistaken beliefs about it. I don't know. The nature of gravity as an energy that flows and changes, gravity as a flow, not a constant, and how the individuals can work with it in new ways, and overcoming gravity and levitation with a being that's part of the physical plane. So what I'm trying to do here, what's up, Grant, is find a correlation between what Muldoon talks about and what these explorers are experiencing, or the knowledge that they're gaining about gravity, right? Told you guys this might be a long one tonight, so settle in. And if you guys remember, I need your reports on if you're getting out of body or not, or at least if you're getting to the vibratory state or what's going on. Just hit me up in the Discord and let me know. What's up, Zayas Bonanza? Yeah, what's up? All right, here we go. See if I can get this on, make sure I get this on the radio side too. I think he's going into focus, like 10, 12, whatever here.
Comments that you would like to make before we begin our questions?
We have remarked to this entity.
All right, so we've established he's speaking to an entity, so it's not channeling, I guess, or maybe it is. I don't know.
About the discussion that took place before this session. And there is some questions in this individual of which we were dealing with. We were of the assumption that it would be best to have or start with the questions from you in beginning the session.
All right. If I'm to suggest a topic, I'll suggest one that is on Bob Monroe's list of interests. He would like to have us get some information about the physical energy that we call gravity. Could
Yeah,
you
let's
tell
talk
us
about
something
gravity.
about your perception of this energy?
This energy, gravity, is a energy that is part of the physical plane. It is part of the physical experience. It is, in one sense, it is the structure. That is not a good word, but it is this energy that is a major force in your physical plane, in this physical existence. Gravity is,
It's going to be vague, I bet.
from the perspectives of all within your environment, it is an unknown. It is unseen. It is, in many respects, an energy that you are not aware of, but yet it is there. Its presence, its effects are seen, achieved every moment of every day of every individual on the physical plane. It is part of the makeup of the physical plane. The energy involved is an energy that has no
Dude, this guy's belly's going off.
feeling of good or bad. It is more, if you may consider, a force, but it is a part of this earth plane. It is a conscious part. It is a consciousness. It is a being, as the earth is a being. This is an energy that flows, that is supported, that is connected with all. It can be called, in one sense, we would say brother, but
You said,
that
what you say?
would put
You said, Mike, this guy people call a nut and a trance is more comprehensible than Kamala the Harris.
a polarity on it. It is a part of yourself. It is a part of all. Gravity is not a constant. It flows. It is not concrete. Its boundaries have been placed there. It has been, in one sense, the boundaries have been created by individuals on the physical plane. The energy of
In Sudi's
the
humble
physical
opinion.
plane. Have you any questions?
Yeah, I got some questions. I mean, what did he say? He said gravity isn't what you think it is. It's an energy that you can't see. I mean, we're so far no correlations to Muldoon's fallen dreams here. How come the entities, yeah, maybe he is talking as that. How come the entities know less than astral travelers, the humans of the earth sometimes?
Well, can you tell us something about the nature of this energy?
The nature, this is a part, a facet, an energy of the physical plane. If you can perceive the physical plane as an being, an individual, that this energy is a portion, a part of this being, and its nature from
Maybe he's a tall
your
cat.
perspective is of a certain circumference. It is, its parameters have been placed by man, its measurements, its being is so thoroughly, in one aspect, thoroughly known and used by man, but yet man has no understanding of this, has no idea of just what this is, this thing of gravity, and the energy of gravity, its nature, you see as the function it forms within this physical plane is evident to all. But the...
Did he say gravity was like an entity in itself? Am I understanding that correctly? Is that what he said?
The limitations or this is a word that the uses that man has placed on gravity or on this
being.
energy, the parameters are not the whole of the energy. They are, as we said, not concrete. The energy does flow. The energy does fluctuate. The energy is in a constant movement. There is constant change. The perceptions may remain the same. Science may change their perceptions. They are always recreating the physical plane as they go along, and they will or have recreated gravity, recreated the boundaries of what has been placed on gravity. And the individuals
Is a big
will
spider.
also do this within their existence with this unseen force. They will feel this force more or less at various times. They may extend the boundaries or may stop this so-called pull.
So this guy is saying through this, you guys are right. This guy is saying that gravity is a set of entities, right? Like it's a group of entities that create a reality of this pulling thing. Is that what he's saying? Or an energy of entities that create some kind of pulling? Maybe he doesn't have the words to express what like he's trying to say.
At various times. It is an energy that has been placed within a certain so-called pattern. It flows in one direction, as has been stated, but this is not true, as it may reverse itself or may alleviate the pull at a
Gotcha.
given time if the individual understands this energy, understands themselves, understands the energies of the earth plane. The individual, as you see, must be masters of themselves before they can be masters of the physical plane. They must have a understanding, a knowing, a control over themselves before they may ever use these energies for other than the projected purposes of these energies. And we say used because they cannot control. They
So hold on. So he's saying that gravity is a thing that we could use to our advantage in a different way, but we as humans haven't figured out how to control ourselves well enough in this environment to use it for other purposes other than just making sure stuff falls down or propulsion. Is he telling us how we could like fly? Like later we'll be able to fly like the UFOs do, or like we'll be able to fly like Neo in the Matrix, but once we get to a certain place of self-control, maybe? It just sounds like a 3-year-old trying to read a book, you know? Fascinating, though.
cannot manipulate. They can use, they can work with the energies and have an agreement to use the energies. It would be more of a joint use in this agreement to create whatever desired results that were asked for by this individual. It is from this individual, from the working throughs of this individual that this is possible. It must begin there. It is the only place that it can be achieved, and until it is through the individual can any so-called change happen outside of the individual, although when this process is in this direction to this point, it will no longer be from the individual as perceived as phenomena. It will all be understood, and it will all be considered normal. Phenomena is just from your perspective. From another perspective, it is natural. From another perspective, it is impossible. Many of these so-called impossible boundaries have been destroyed and have been placed within the systems of normal within individuals, much in this time period, if we may use that phrase. And yet this perspective is still seen as a limited perspective, a total perspective of all is not achieved, individuals tend to close themselves off too much.
So the reason,
In-
so the reason we're not flying, I'm guessing, yet, is it because we're closed off? Is that what he's saying? Don't make me get the German back on here. By the way, I don't know if it was Beasy or who was it. I told you guys that the German guy that was in the Explorers thing actually tried to do his own thing and put a court case against Robert Monroe, right? So that's going to be the new punishment on this channel. Like, if you guys act up, I'm going to get that German guy out on you. We'll just sick him on you. Sudi says, I reflexively crossed my legs and zipped my hoodie up when that guy was on. Yeah, he was kind of creepy, right? It is interesting what this guy is saying. I thought that we were going to hear something like, you know, something about what it has to do with fallen dreams. But from what I'm understanding, it's kind of like that movie Interstellar. Like, we don't really know the nature of gravity, but I do know that in the esoteric, you have Asaya, which is the earth, which is the densest vibration or the slowest vibratory place. And then in Yetzirah, you have the astral, which is where all the dreams, symbols, blueprints, every cockamamie elemental thing exists in the astral. So if we're to manifest something into the earth, like pull it into the earth, I wonder if gravity takes a role in manifestation in that sense. I know it sounds wackadoo, but I know Blavatsky was talking about it too, where she said she could actually, or someone witnessed that she pulled something into physical reality through the astral realm. It would really be like just changing the radio station from the astral to the dense, if you think about it. I don't know. I'm thinking about other things. Maybe I'm totally off here, but so far he's saying, so this is where we're at. So far he's saying that gravity is an energetic entity that's misunderstood by us. We don't have enough self-control to really use it for what it's supposed to be used for, or other methods of what it's supposed to be used for. And until we get enough self-control as humans, as individuals and as a collective, we'll be able to use gravity for other reasons other than propulsion and physics and all this other stuff, I'm guessing. I'm only guessing here because this is a little wild.
In thinking, you've said a number of things now that I want to ask some questions about. But in thinking about the nature of this energy, the gravity energy, is it different, say, than from the energy that we call electricity or from the energy that we think of as the magnetic forces?
Yes, it is a difference in the sense that it is conceptualized as gravity by you. It is also a part of this being, as are these other energies. They are all a mixture of this being, and in one sense are the creations, a facet of this being, and in that sense they could be considered to be one energy, as all energies are connected.
She should ask better questions.
Telling us
honestly.
that it is that gravity is not a constant but a flow. Our scientists seem to give us an overall gravity figure as represented on the Earth And is it the Earth gravity measurement being different from, say, the moon gravity or gravity on other planets? So are you saying that that the scientists are wrong about the measurement here, or are you thinking about this in a different way than we've used that?
The scientists are always recreating the boundaries of gravity. In their perception of gravity, they do not
You guys have to remember he channeled this entity in 1986. I wonder if it would say the same thing today.
there is a contradiction here in that we were to say scientists do not hold gravity as being concrete, but yet they do. The scientist will change their measurements of gravity. They will change their understandings of gravity. They do this. And yet each time they do this, then they move the concrete one step further. So they have both, but they do not have what they consider an all-knowing understanding from their mathematical formula of what gravity is. They have still question marks in this, and there will be always question marks unless they wish to block this. They may feel that a certain set of parameters is it and deny all else.
Perhaps the issue here is one of definition. As I've understood the definition of gravity, what we're speaking of here is the pull that the planetary body exerts on through its motion in the universe, exerts on the elements within its gravitational field, as we've called it. Would you define gravity in some different way from that?
This is the perceived effect of this energy, yes.
So far, this gravity report has nothing to do with flying dreams. I thought it would, or the pull from the astral, or the pull that's, I guess you could say, how do I say this? Like the pull that is on the astral body that comes into the physical body. So he's relating gravity more to like how we use it as humans and our perception of what it really is. But I think she could ask better questions. We'll get more into Muldoon's work too, but I wanted to hear what this entity has to say about gravity, just because I personally don't think that the scientists know what gravity is. I think they know what it is, but I don't think this entity or whatever he's talking to might know what it is either. But anyways, yeah, we're at the top of the hour. We got to do the Fringe FM thing, and we'll be right back.
is it? What's my name? It looks like I'm alone. I guess it's life. I gaze out the window now. Guess I gotta get up.
I wouldn't make it a habit calling me that then.
I wish I could say I saw with relief it was just a dream. I can fake it. Give me some relief, say it's just a dream. I can wait. I saw with relief it was just a dream. I can't face it. Give me some relief, say it's just a
Make some
dream.
coffee.
Give me time, I'm still coming down. I'll shook up.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe
Redacted.
Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, Bo, get in here and look at the TV. This reporter guy, he's saying that the alien spaceships have coming down and are having fights with the military. I know, Uncle Bill. Isn't it crazy? The New York Times even told me alien spaceship parts is in Las Vegas. Have you heard conversations like this? Are you looking for more definitive explanations and answers? Visit our website at ufoseekers.com.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
Inside my head, there's a little place left for you. What do you know? What do you know?
Alrighty. We're back. And it's kind of a mixed bag tonight. I'm talking about astral projection, the etheric body, and falling dreams, and then listening to the explorer talk about gravity. But I just look, I'm not trying to make fun of or anything like that or disrespect any of the explorers at the Monroe Institute in the 1980s at all. Really not. I mean, I'm sure it's hard, just like any like any trance state that you're in, whether you're in a psychedelic state or a trance state, or you're in some kind of crazy dream, or you're trying to interpret what the hell's going on or what you're being told. It's probably not that easy to I guess, interpret what people are saying, but we're all just humans here too, right? We're a bunch of people that think we know what's really going on. And you talk to one person, they know a little bit more. You talk to another, they know more about one thing. And then someone will correct them. It's the same with books. And this is why I like Muldoon, because he says you really can't know the truth about any of these things until you experience them for yourself. That's the only way you're going to get objective truths about things, is to experience them yourself. So Muldoon goes on to say that there's no fixed time required for the astral body to move from coincidence to the end of the chord activity range. So when he says coincidence, what he's talking about is your etheric body inside of your physical body. Every time he says coincidence. So the temperament of the individual governs this, and some people are such a makeup, so our temperaments govern this. Some people are of such a makeup, naturally possessing strong positive factors tending towards projection, that they can move out rapidly, sometimes being even unable to stop themselves. Such individuals experience unintentional astral projections very often, when it's sleep at night being the usual time. Others can move out, but more slowly, through a chance of intervention of positive factors or by intentionally inducing these factors. What's up, Yeshua? Thanks for joining the chat all the way from Thailand. Good job. That's cool, brother. Wish I was in Thailand right now. There are still others who, while appearing perfectly conscious, healthy, and even when walking, will have factors set in which are positively favorable to projection. The etheric will begin to shake or reel and unbind itself from its physical counterpart. The physical will begin to move, twist, tremble, and next the etheric will become cataleptic or paralyzed, ready to move out. The etheric body. So the physical will become so also. Then the etheric separates. So both, what he's saying is, it isn't just the physical body that becomes paralyzed. It's both your physical and etheric double that become paralyzed at once. Once this happens, then the etheric begins to want to separate, like it knows it's supposed to. Think about that. And then the physical falls in a relaxed heap. This is commonly, and what he calls this actually is, this isn't what happens to us. I'm sorry. What he calls this is epilepsy. So that's interesting. So normally, let me correct myself here so I don't misrepresent this guy. Normally what happens is, with us, our etheric double is inside of our body. Every night it separates and rises above us a little bit. It slides around, whatever, but it's always there. We can dream, we can move around in this etheric double if we want to, or most of the time we just end up dreaming. When we come back from the dream, we unconsciously don't even know this is happening, but we kind of settle into the etheric and then come back into the physical body. What he's saying now is that there are times when the physical will begin to move, twist, and tremble next, and then the etheric body, our double, will become paralyzed and ready to move out. And the physical will do it as well. Then the etheric separates and the physical falls in a relaxed heap. And he says this is called epilepsy. For the past 8 years, he said, this is in the 1920s too, okay? So, and I know people that have epilepsy or they have seizures and stuff, so take this with a grain of salt, but hear this out. He says, for the past 8 years, I've been in close contact with this disease, which has baffled medical science, and I've finally made up my mind that what I have described is precisely what occurs at the time of an epileptic attack. Usually there's a physical derangement somewhere in the victim, which is the basic cause of the unbinding of the etheric body. Brain lesions and abnormalities of the sexual anatomy are common causes, and I know of one case where pressure of gas against the solar plexus throws a patient into a spell. Abnormal mentality always looms up with this disease, and I am of the opinion, and he says this is not original with me, however, that the unbalancement of the mind or insanity in any form is caused because the etheric body is not bound tightly to the physical. Holy crap. You know, we're not doctors here, but that's a pretty trippy statement, right? So regarding this question of insanity, the anonymous author of The Maniac, the most valuable psychological document, says in a footnote, quote, the ego can safely withdraw from the physical body and the etheric body, which is the link between the physical body and the ego. It must be shuffled off as one sheath and left together united. Then the physical suffers no harm. But the trouble in madness or insanity is that a separation has taken place between the two. Panacea could be found either in medical science, mental science, or any other science, which would accomplish the result of creating a stronger tie between the two counterparts. What a godsend it would be to humanity. What if... Let's see, hold on. This arrow shows the route that the phantom takes in projecting. Can y'all, let me see if y'all, can y'all see this on YouTube? Sorry, radio people. What if he was right, though, about that? Like if we, I'm not saying he is, but what if some of the things that we can't figure out, my ex-wife used to have seizures too, right? Like, we really don't know why they happen sometimes. But what if we were to figure out the reasons for things like manic depression, schizophrenia, stuff like that? What if it really had to do less with just some psychological disorder and more with how the etheric double relates to the physical body? What if? That's all I'm saying. If some panacea could be found either in medical science, mental science, or any other science, which would accomplish the result of creating a stronger tie between the two counterparts, what a godsend it would be to humanity. So he's saying if medical science figured out how to, I guess somehow to tap into this etheric double that we have and like make it have a stronger tie to the physical body and work properly, there would be less mental disorders or epilepsy, things like that. So when the intermediary between the etheric and physical body is not normal, this is freaking weird. As in any case of epilepsy, some subjects drift into imbecility. I am acquainted with one woman who became gifted with unusual clairvoyant powers about the same time when she became a victim of epilepsy. Again, some outstanding figures in history have been epileptic, such as Caesar, Napoleon, and Socrates. Just why abnormalities of the mind bring out specific results in specific cases is a matter of which we know little. Pretty interesting stuff. Still doesn't explain a lot of, I mean, it doesn't explain it. It could be one explanation of why it happens. But if you're ever around someone that's having like a seizure or something like that, it's a freaking scary thing, man. Especially, I think my ex-wife had one time, and I think she was driving actually, and she could feel it coming on. Like she knew when they were going to happen. We weren't doing anything out of the ordinary, I don't think. And she just started saying, I feel like I'm going to pass out. I feel like I just don't feel right. And the more I think about it, what Muldoon is saying makes sense because I've been in my etheric double a few times. Like, if it had a looser tie or more of a chaotic tie to my body at some times in my life, I could see where that would feel pretty crazy, you know? Shit, I don't know. that's totally out of my wheelhouse. But this guy states that he's been out of body so much back in the 20s that he knows all this stuff. Like he says it beyond the shadow of a doubt. So I don't know. So let's get back into we're kind of going back and forth between the book and the Explorers Project here, but let's see what else that MDG 45 in 1986 has to say about the nature of gravity. He hasn't even talked about how it affects the etheric double or astral body or anything. He's just talking about gravity.
Then in suggesting, if I was understanding you, in suggesting that different individuals can use gravity or make various agreements with gravity that will, in fact, allow them to be in different relationship to gravity than others. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Then a person could make an agreement not to be affected or to be minimally affected by this pull toward the earth?
Yes.
And what are the ways in which an individual would go about trying to test this out for themselves?
For an individual to test this out would, in that sense, bring about what that individual considered failure. A test brings in the non-belief with the attempt to do something which the individual has spent much energy building systems, and then with a test attempts to change their total orientation. But as we feel your question would be, what would an individual do? How could an individual go beyond this limitation, this boundary that has been placed upon this energy, and to work with, use the agreement with the energy in a new manner, which is all that would be done. And again, this comes back to the individual. Would you like us to speak on this?
What the hell is
yes,
he
that was
talking about?
the question behind the question. How, if an individual wishes to alter the belief, maintain the belief that an agreement could be made that would change the relationship to gravity, we'd like to know, yes, how a person would proceed.
The individual would begin or would start, I guess we can say, by clearing out first all fears, all limitations. The individual must, as we stated, know themselves. They must find their connectiveness within this various energies of themselves. They must.
So what? Can we find this connectedness of gravity within us? We can fly? What the hell is he talking about? I really think that he's getting some type of information here from the astral, but I don't think he knows how to say it.
Gain control of themselves. That it is a becoming balanced and becoming harmonized, as you say, to individuals as they count to C1. This person, this individual, in alleviating and achieving these things, would then begin to see, to work with the energies of the physical plane in a totally new manner. It would be through this process that an individual could then, if so desired, work with gravity. An individual who is afraid of falling down and becoming hurt physically and possibly dying is not an individual who will conquer, so to speak, gravity.
Wait, what is he? What is he saying? Like we can prevent. So if we could conquer gravity so that we would never fall. I think this guy is like hinting that we would be able to fly or something. I don't think he just wants to say it. Like eventually humans are going to be able to fly. End of story. Once they conquer gravity.
Well, we have observed certain kinds of phenomena occurring with many individuals on the earth. The notion that, for example, that we can, with our minds, bend metal, or that we can walk on hot coals without being burnt, and so on. We've seen those phenomena occur on Earth.
I can walk across hot coals without being burned, by the way. If you walk around barefoot enough, you develop stuff on the bottom of your feet, you can do it. And even if those people that walk across hot coals fast enough, like that's some BS. You can anybody can pump themselves up enough and walk across hot coals. And some people's feet are so rough, it ain't going to do a damn thing to them.
Does it seem equally possible for large numbers of people, for example, to learn how to levitate off the ground?
This has this is a system. These boundaries, this energy, gravity, in the one sense is extremely strong, as in comparison to the systems of the hot coals. It, in one sense, is as everything is.
I don't know who you're talking about who was on last Friday. I didn't go live Friday. You must have been listening to Shift Happens or something.
It's possible. And
oh, wait a minute. Are you talking about the explorer Delina? Is that who you're talking about that was flying through the cosmos and seeing all this stuff? Yeah, because I don't the only links that I have are the ones at archive.org from the Monroe Explorers. I don't know the lady. I don't even think she's alive. I don't know. This is from like the 80s. If that's what you're talking about. If you're talking about a Friday night broadcast, I wasn't on last Friday. I don't broadcast on Fridays. At least I don't think I did. Getting old, I could forget things too.
It, in one sense, is, as everything is, possible. And as individuals begin to do this, then it will have the effect of having been done by others, will be more so in the system of being duplicated by others. It is this process that it could possibly fall into this, but it is also the nature of to achieve this, the purpose behind this. That is, again, one of the limitations or conflicts in trying to achieve this. The desires to control, to manipulate, the desire for power, with these desires in individuals and the many desires behind them, these things, these desires, these energies, these attachments will be the very stumbling blocks from use of this energy in new ways.
What the hell was that?
Are there any of what we think of as nature forms, other animals or plants and so on, who in a natural way are not affected by the forces of gravity?
The energies, the nature, and the physical plane is all within this mixture with gravity. It is part of the physical environment. It is the physical plane. It is the physical existence.
Do you guys think that there is something like what he's saying? Like, I mean, there's no way to prove this, but do you think that there is something that allows us to evolve to certain levels of abilities consciously once we get to a certain place individually and collectively? I've always wondered that. right? Like, even when I was trying to get out of body that one time and those shadow things pushed me back in, I always thought that that was just something that wasn't letting me go somewhere, possibly because I wasn't ready for it. But it is a trippy thought to think that the only reason why we can't get to where we want to get consciously is because of the ego and what we're trying to control. And I mean, even in the esoteric, they talk about that. Your desires and your fears are the two things that box you in. Not just fear, but you're being overrun by desire or overwhelmed by fear. Those two things are the barriers to this whole conscious explorative world, I guess. So what I'm wondering is there something that's overseeing all of that to see if when we get to a certain place, and then it's just going to allow us to do certain things. But until then, we're kind of stuck where we're at. It kind of feels that way, actually. But I don't want to take that on as a belief, because if I'm wrong, and then it'll be in my unconscious.
So often told us that that many of the things that we think of as strange are perfectly within the normal, so to speak. Would again, not a good word, but overcoming gravity also be a perfectly natural phenomena, or does the suggestion that you've just made about all natural forms being in the physical plane mean that this would be an abnormal occurrence?
This occurrence, it is possible, and it from the perspective of the individual who has learned to work with this energy in a new manner, so to speak, it would be, again, normal. It, from that perspective, would be a new perspective. The feelings and dealings with gravity, it would be as though discovering more to what you have limited. The energy there. It would also be, again, a part of this physical plane, and in being, the individual would be interacting within the various projections of other individuals, and would be perceived as, from the perspective of other individuals, as being in harmony with their belief systems. There would be an understanding within themselves that yourself would be in accord with their beliefs, in with their perceptions. An individual has a so-called a blind spot for those things that is beyond their total understanding. It will not exist if it does not fall in their systems within their energies. It will not be perceived, and so it will not be there.
Oh, that's trippy. Okay.
Are there actually individuals on the earth who have been able to levitate or in some way overcome the forces of gravity?
Yes. It, in one sense, we may say, the fluctuations are somewhat more common than the individual who makes the conscious desire to interact differently with the energy. But this has been achieved, and it is an interaction which, in the one sense, is only perceived by that individual. It is not accomplished by groups or by desire to manipulate and cause change.
We have seen the phenomena of firewalking, for example, used as a way of reducing fear in individuals. That is, ability to do it with others viewing the experience as well.
Yeah.
Seems to have, for some individuals, a fear-reducing aspect.
Firewalkers.
Could levitation be seen in the same way?
Yes. In a manner of this, it would be a challenge to the held belief systems of an individual, to the various parameters. It may be perceived in many ways by many different individuals. It may alleviate fear, and it may spark fears. It could be from Satan.
It's always from Satan.
It
if we do something weird.
The signal of the end of the world. It could be an angel. It may fall into many, many parameters, many different groupings. The phenomena that are achieved are, as they work within individuals.
Yeah, I could totally tell, like, it's cool information, but I could totally tell why Robert Monroe and them didn't put this guy as any of this guy's audios on the first. So they have like a first tape of the Explorers, right? And it's got all of like the best stuff of what's in the Explorers tapes or what's going on. But I could totally tell why they wouldn't put this guy on the front, because it's such a hard listen, right? Like he pauses sometimes 3-4 seconds before saying words. It's so brutal, man. But basically, in a nutshell, this whole thing, he's just saying, in my opinion, that gravity is some kind of weird entity. It's it can be overcome once we reach a certain level of consciousness and letting go of the ego. When we decide, we don't care too much about our desires and our fears, or we're not trying to manipulate people or whatever. And then she asks him in the end, well, have individuals done this? Yeah, individuals have done it. You can do it. But if you do it, when people see you do these things, people are all going to perceive them different. And some people are going to say it's Satan. Some people are going to say it's an angel. Like, all of this stuff is kind of vague, honestly. I didn't really learn much about the nature of gravity. I just think, or from that session, I just think that, Delina, I'll try to find that link for you to the lady that was doing the Explorers Project. I just think that going through all of these audios, I'm not hearing a lot other than Thomas Campbell and a couple of other people, even in their etheric body. It's always, they get to a certain level of consciousness. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. If you've heard more of these audios than I have, I would love to hear it. But they get to a certain level of consciousness. Some of them, like the lady that Delene is talking about, they were flying around out of body and seeing things. But a lot of these tapes are just like channeled material or channeling information, which I got to tell you, I'm not that interested in that. Even though it's cool, some of the info that we get is cool, but like I'm more interested in what I can experience, like that lady that experienced those other things. So there's some Thomas Campbell stuff in here, but I don't know what it is. So I wanted to get into this story. What are you saying? So Terrence Howard on Rogan said gravity from off Earth, not the rotation of the Earth. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, it could be some kind of conscious entity, but it's not really like, if you channel something, that's cool, personally, like if you do it. But like as a void walker, none of us will ever be able to experience that channeled session that you experienced, right? So we either have to take your word for it or go under to a point to where we channel something, and then the best we can get to as far as evidence is concerned is, oh, well, we channeled something too. And whether that entity is reliable, factual, and all these other things, that's a whole other discussion, right? So let's get back into Muldoon's stuff. He's talking about, now we're going to get back into just getting into the etheric double and into the astral, right? Which is that's more interesting to me, actually. So let me see if I can find this story, the case of 89. So he says, a patient, a lady of about 35 years of age, was brought to Mrs. Hess. The patient believed that she was a locomotive engine and would make all the sounds characteristics of what she thought she was. So she would, I guess, get into a certain state of consciousness and think that she was a locomotive. She would go through the house saying chugga, 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 chug, then blow out steam, then whistle, and would follow the track through imaginary towns. On investigation, the healer found that a spirit in the astral realm was constantly following the woman, and that this spirit was a locomotive engineer. Next, Miss Hess got into communication with the obsessor and learned that the engineer was killed in a violent manner under his engine, number 89. This, in fact, was what he called himself, 89, and he was in such bewilderment that he thought he was still under the engine. He could not understand that he was dead and in his astral body. So by bringing the engineer's mother to the scene, who had passed away prior to that time, the obsessor was eventually enlightened and found that his body was not hurting him after all, but it had not been mere imagination in the beginning. 89, or the engine, was thrown into, or this entity named 89, was thrown into this insanity in the outset by actually being conscious in the astral body, within cord activity range. When duplicate sensations existed, he could feel the engine upon him, accompanied by the pain that it brought. So you wonder why in dreams you can feel sensations. I've felt pain. I've felt all kinds of things in dreams, right? You wonder at these astral victims becoming, are these victims becoming insane, being themselves obsessed? And why such an experience as this would drive anyone into a similar state of mind? But fortunately, factors at the time of death are not always as unfortunate as they are in this case. Consciousness does not always manifest at the same time and place, and sensibility does not always circulate in the three organisms at once: the physical body, the astral body, and the astral cable. Deaths are not always violent like this. Yet this case goes to show that there is, after all, a reason why some spirits return and complain of pangs which they are still experiencing and which do them more than imagination. And Muldoon goes on to say, do not think for 1 minute that this pain in the astral is not genuine. It is real. The sensibility is the same sensibility that it is, or that it was when the bodies were in coincidence, when they were together. And although the astral phantom is insensible to physical things, if he does contact the pain by way of the physical through the cable, it is a real pain. And it stays after the cable snaps, and until it is cured by the mind, it's just going to stay there. It is, I realize, hard to conceive of sensibility existing apart from the nerves of the physical body, but merely because it seems incredible is not a reason why not to believe it. So perhaps this in some manner explains why some people who have had arms or legs severed claim to be able to feel them. They feel phantom legs, phantom's arms, even after the stump is healed. Might it not be through the sensibility present in the astral, occupying the space formerly occupied by the physical arm? In Physical Phenomena and War, Hereward Carrington has quoted a case similar to that of the engineer 89, and he calls this the painful bayonet case. So basically what we're getting at is how powerful the etheric double actually is. And anybody that has been in any kind of pain or lost a limb or anything, always, it's like they always experience this, you know. What are you saying, Joe? It's not you, it's me. Yeah. Yep, you're late to the party, bro. It's all right though. So here's another case, right? This is interesting stuff. I'm just trying to let you guys know how real your etheric double is. Because I really believe that a lot of people are, this is just my opinion, but a lot of people are calling dreaming, lucid dreaming, and active imagination, and even remote viewing like the out-of-body experience. And that is not like what I'm calling, and this guy, Muldoon, and Robert Monroe, as far as the double is concerned, an out-of-body experience. But this is what confuses everybody, and I'm sorry, but it does. When you go through the stages of your consciousness, quote, leaving the body, you do go first to the etheric double. A lot of times we just pass right through it. We never feel it. Or we go straight into a dream. We don't even feel that etheric double rising up because we just fall so deep asleep so fast. But I know most of you that have been experimenting with this, you've had to, at least at some point, felt yourself kind of floating up as you're falling asleep. Or you'll catch yourself maybe, like you're almost like you're in this hypnagogic point of either trying to wake yourself back up or in between that state of falling asleep, and you'll feel like you're levitating. I can't be the only one, and this guy can't be the only one, and a couple of you have told me about this. That is your etheric double. You can stay in that etheric double with, I guess what he's saying, with the cord attached and move around consciously, and it looks just like the reality that I'm looking at now with you. That's how real it is. It's the thing that keeps us alive. It's who we really are, I guess, as this form. So, again, when we dream, that thing is usually left there just floating, and we're in a dream somewhere. Our unconscious is having visions and dreaming and different places and in different vibrations. And then when we wake up, we don't remember this for the most part. We come back into this double and fall back into the body. And I've had this feeling too. It was a long time ago, I told you guys about this dream that I used to have where I was going to this, it felt like I was going to this golf course up in heaven or whatever. And I would play golf with these old men, and I freaking knew these old men. I have never seen these guys on the earth, ever. Like, never in my life. Yeah, Jane says, yes, floaty. I felt that too, right? So I remember in this one dream specifically, I was like, man, I got to go back. And they were like, yep, you got to go back. And I said, I guess I'll see you guys next time or whatever. What the hell? But I felt like I knew these guys my whole life or lifetimes or something. So anyways, as I'm going back down in leaving the dream, there was a point where I felt the sensation in my stomach of falling. And at that point, that is when my consciousness, I guess, came back into that etheric double and then eventually fell back into the body. And I felt that whole ride. So when I left the quote golf course or whatever, I didn't feel that. But as I started getting this falling sensation right before waking up, that's where I was in that etheric double, and it falls back into the body. I promise you guys, most of you, I don't want to say all of you, but most of you will feel this if you do just hypnagogic exercises. You don't have to use the Monroe Institute stuff, just exercises that keep you in the hypnagogic state. And then at some point while you're conscious, let yourself fall asleep, but try to stay aware of it. And you will. You'll just suddenly just feel like you're floating up. And it only goes so far before your consciousness drifts into a dream or somewhere else. Just remember that. Just remember what I just said there. And then the next time you actually try to have an etheric projection, you'll understand it more. You'll understand like this double or whatever. It's a pretty cool thing to experiment with. You could just Google like hypnagogic state exercises, things like that. How to stay in hypnagogic states as long as possible, things like that. So back to the phantom feelings that we get when we lose limbs or phantom pains. So this is called the painful bayonet case. On New Year's Day in 1916, three friends were sitting for spirit communication when a soldier came to them. He has that in quotation marks, complaining that the bayonet which killed him was still through his body, through his astral body, and that it was giving him pain, and that he wished to have it removed. After an extensive conversation between the astral entity and the three people that were sitting there communicating with him, much was learned as to the phantom, that he was a Canadian. He was the husband of Miss Weston Cook, whose name was Alice Weston, who lived in Hem Bay near London, and other details I guess they went through. But his main concern was that the bayonet was hurting him. He had been run through by a German on Christmas Day. I guess this is World War I? And he wanted it removed. And one of the sitters replied, quote, "You're deluding yourself. If you are dead, you are in a new body. The bayonet may be sticking in that old body, but it's not really sticking in you now." So the phantom replied to them, just try a bit yourself. Just try a bit yourself. It seems that the astral being was fully aware of the pain. It would not admit that it was a delusion until one of the sitters that was communicating with him apparently pulled the bayonet out. Where did the soldier get his idea of pain from? If we don't have an etheric double and they saw this astral entity and he's complaining of the pain, then where did he, if it's not real, if it's a delusion, where did he get that idea of pain from? So from having it transmitted across the astral cable from the physical while conscious, this is what Muldoon is saying, because it was ultimately eliminated by the mind, does not prove that the pain does not exist. But you will say, how do you account for the bayonet? Surely there was no bayonet sticking in the phantom's astral body at the time. And Muldoon is saying, but there actually was. Not a physical bayonet, but an astral form of the bayonet created by the mind of the phantom. And he goes on, I can discuss how the mind creates its own environments later. You have to be aware of, this is another thing too, like if you're going to move around in the astral realm and in your, like, I guess your physical, I'm confusing words, your etheric double, you have to be aware of what you really truly believe all the way down into your unconscious, because you're going to take those things into this realm. It's almost better to, in my opinion, to just not believe anything and just surrender to the experience if you can. Because well, here's one of the reasons why. You and I don't want to get morbid with you, okay? But at some point in our life, you and I are going to pass away. If we don't do these conscious experiments enough, if we don't realize this reality of our physical body, the etheric double, and wherever our consciousness goes and dissipates into afterwards, if we don't practice this while we're alive, or we don't believe in it, or we're not even aware of it, when we pass away, this real thing that I know is real is going to happen to us. Which means, as an example, let's take it as an example. If I never cared about astral travel, never believed in it, never talked about it, never practiced it, never consciously tried to experience it, if something were to happen to me, God forbid, or anybody, they got hit by a car, you fell, you got cut, anything, and you got into the astral, the etheric double is so real that you don't know the difference. A lot of times people are staring at their bodies and they're not even aware that they can't comprehend that they're dead, you know. So you're going to take everything that you believe down into your unconscious into that realm. I hope I'm making sense. And if you're totally unaware of these things, it can be a real, it could be a real bad experience. But if you do your spiritual work, I guess if you want to put it that way, if you practice this stuff, just like what's his name that came on the podcast from the Truth Disciples, the spiritual benefits of knowing the reality of this, when you pass away, you'll be aware of what's going on. You might be like, okay, well, I've passed away. And even if you're feeling pain at the time or whatever you took into the astral realm, you'll know, oh, well, that's just a delusion. All I have to do is understand that I'm passed away and now I'm in my spirit body and it'll all go away. A lot of these explorers, man, have run into people like that kid that was just sitting there. He thought he was there forever, like sitting there holding on to a log. He thought he was still alive and alone in the dark. I'm not trying to scare people, but this could be a real thing. I personally have not run across other people that have been dying. I haven't gotten that far. But what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be better to be prepared yourself as an individual, consciously, and for others, so you can help them? You could just tell yourself and others, hey, man, this is just a different state that we're in. We're okay. Right? But people don't know this. We're not taught this. It's been gate kept, so to speak. What does he say? So a tremendous force operates within the astral cable. I've often wished that some method could be devised for measuring this force in physical terms. That is, to determine just how much material weight could be moved by this force if the cable could make contact with it. I firmly believe that while projected and within chord activity range, if I could obtain some tangible grip upon a physical object, the force in the cable could move that object, even though the latter weighed a ton. Think about that. Could explain how the pyramids were built. From my experience, I have a good reason to believe that a free cable can extend outward from the body, a cable or rod, without an astral body at its end, and that this free cable can exert a push and pull action and can transmit motivity, which under certain conditions can cause wraps and move objects. So basically, you're moving objects with your mind. One of the methods by which clairvoyance is said to be facilitated is by means of an astral, quote, line of force. Granting this to be true, it would be possible for the motivity of the subject's body to shift outside the body along this line of force, and with this bodily motivity thus exteriorized, the subject would be powerless for the time, although his astral body would still be in coincidence, and he could be conscious. It has often been noted that a medium has been in this condition of powerlessness when raps were produced. Sounds, you know. And he goes, see, I know you can affect the physical realm while you're in your astral body because I've done it. I've banged on the desk. But I really remember having to try to do it, like really hard. He goes on to say, this is cool. A rap produced at will during exteriorization of motivity. He says, in fact, I've produced raps myself while I'm in this state. I recall very distinctly walking one morning and finding myself minus my motivity. I reasoned within myself thus, if my motivity is extending outside my body and I am now conscious, why cannot I will that a rap be produced? He's saying that in weird English. I guess he wants to produce a rap, whatever that means. I think it's a banging or something. And I did will with determination that a rap should come on the dresser. See, he beat on the dresser too. So did Dr. Stelianos Ateshlis. He moved a knife that was on somebody's dresser. And I think a lot of the paranormal activity that when people see like doors slam or chairs move or whatever is either one, an astral being that's practicing messing around moving stuff. Doesn't happen very often. Or somebody that's passed away that's in their etheric double, so to speak, and still messing with stuff, you know. I haven't witnessed that much paranormal activity, though, myself, only a couple of times. So he said, I did will, and he puts will in slanties, with determination that I made a sound on the dresser. That's what he's calling a rap. The rap was produced. And as a rule, however, when one gets into this condition of exteriorized motivity, he becomes too excited ever to think of doing such a thing. And instead of willing his moving around or moving away from him, he is only anxious for its return. Yeah, I get that. Because when I did that, when I went to where my son was playing video games and beat on the desk, I did not want to keep moving around in the astral. I wanted to get back to my body as soon as possible and tell him. I was excited about it. But I don't even know to this day, honestly, I don't know to this day what my son actually heard or if he even heard the same thing that I heard when I hit the desk. But I do remember walking up to it and kind of like putting my hands on it. And if you just kind of stay there, your hands will go through it. But you can still, it's really crazy. You can put your hands on things, but you can also let your hands kind of move through them, or it'll move through your hand. It's really weird. It's hard to explain. So as to moving objects when the astral body itself is projected on the end of the line of force, under certain conditions, this can be done, and we shall discuss this later. For the moment, the point I wish to emphasize is this. Motivity can shift across the astral body just as sensibility can. It can make quick shifts or slow shifts. So what he's saying there, because he has a weird way of saying things, that when you're in your astral body, not only can you feel things, you can have sensibilities, you can feel things, but you can also move things. You can use that same force to move things if you know how to tap into it, right? And during astral projection within chord activity range, dual motivity can exist in some degree. Of this, I am certain. When this occurs, every move of the projected end of the line of force reacts upon the subject's physical anatomy, usually in a slight manner, depending upon the amount of motivity still existing there, which is, as a rule, is very little. With this condition of duplicate motivity, a move of the astral arm will produce a twitch in the physical arm, much as a dog's legs will twitch in a dream. And I myself have experienced this with this, guys, like when I went with Cry America to, I think it was the Arizona trip, and I was doing I had everybody lay down on the floor, and I was doing a path working on the microphone. And one guy, I really liked this guy because he he just wanted to believe in reason. He didn't seem like a super spiritual guy or anything. But he said, I scratched I remember him saying, I scratched my head. And I said, well, that's cool. And he said, well, but my hands were on my legs. But how could I scratch my head? And like I told you guys, his mind couldn't comprehend it. But what happened is the motivity of his etheric body did it. His arm, more than likely, probably just twitched. But his etheric arm scratched his head, so to speak. Now, whether that was his like physical head or etheric head, doesn't really matter. He felt it. Is the point. So he says duplicate motivity is much less common than duplicate sensibility. Moving multiple things, I guess, is less common than feeling multiple things. Some persons seeming to be more inclined to it than others. It is present in the unconscious and the dream state more than in the conscious state. And here's a mystery, which is too deep for me, but I know it to be the truth, that one can move an object in his dream, but that object does not move until about 2 seconds later in reality. That's a trippy thought, right? I have had an experience of this character myself, all of which reminds me of what Sir Oliver Lodge has stated in discussing the phenomenon produced by Eusapia Palladino. He says in part, quote, the fact that a medium's body undergoes sympathetic or corresponding movements or twitches is very instructive and interesting. Sometimes, when she or the medium is going to push a distant object, she will make a little sudden push with her hand in this direction, and immediately afterwards the object moves. Once this was done for my edification with constantly the same object, a bureau in the corner of the room. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine getting so good at astral travel you could just meditate, right? Or you could witness somebody that's meditating, or they're laying down, and in their physical body, you'll see their hand kind of move just like that. But about 2 seconds later, something across the room moves. I mean, it's not unheard of. Well, I think we could all do it. If we got into our etheric double enough, I think we could all do it. I know it's kind of crazy, but it's pretty cool. When 6 or 7 feet away, the time interval between the push and the movement of the object was something like 2 seconds. When the accordion is being played, the fingers of the medium are moving in a thoroughly appropriate manner, and the process, reminds of one of the twitching of a dog's legs when he is supposed to be dreaming that he is chasing a rabbit. It is as if Eusapia were dreaming that she was fingering the instrument and dreaming it so vividly that the instrument was actually played. It is as if a dog dreamt of the chase with such energy that a distant rabbit was really captured and killed as by a phantom dog, and fanciful as for the moment it may seem, and valueless as I suppose such speculations are, I confess, at present more than half disposed to look in some such direction for a clue to these effects. In an idealistic conception of nature, it has, by many philosophers, been considered that thought is the reality, and that material substratum is but a consequence of thought. So in a minor degree, it appears here It is as if, let us say, the dream of the entranced person were vivid enough physically to affect surrounding objects and actually produce objective results, to cause not only real and permanent movements of ordinary objects, but also temporary, fresh aggregations of material particles into extraordinary objects. These aggregations being objective enough to be felt, heard, seen, and probably even photographed while they last. When I say that one, I can dream of moving a physical object, and that, if the object be moved, it is not moved in reality until about 2 seconds after one has dreamed that he has moved it. I mean just what I say, regardless of the fact that common sense would deny this, and perhaps this peculiarity will be fathomed in the future. But when the physical body twitches in a dream, it is often because the dream body moves, and duplicate motivity causes the reaction upon the former. An etheric double, or a phantom, can lie above the physical body during sleep, of course, and duplicate involuntarily actions taking place, for example, nervous twitches or similar unconscious movements on the part of the physical body. Now, it's easier to move a physical object with a free line of force than with the astral body projected on the line of force. What does he mean by that? For in the former case, the motivity is concentrated at the point, while in the latter case, the motivity is required to manipulate the astral body, and if the body has its motivity restored to it, the motivity is diffused throughout it. What does that mean? It's easier to move a physical object with a free line of force than with the astral body projected on the line of force. Huh. I'll have to look into that more. That's pretty trippy. So, I've often spoken of the tremendous magnetic pull exerted by the line of force during interiorization. What he's calling interiorization here is when you're in your etheric double and you're being pulled back towards the body. William Buellman talks about this. They all talk about it. The closer you are to your body, the more of a magnetic pull there is back towards the body, right? So Muldoon is talking about this. I've often spoken of this tremendous magnetic pull exerted by the line of force during interiorization. That's what he's calling interiorization, when you're coming back into your body. It is interesting to know that this drawing in force is identical with the force which draws the materialized spirit back into the cabinet. And many prominent experimenters have found that when anything happens to the materialized form, it reacts upon the body of the medium in the cabinet. So in other words, there is a line of force between the medium's physical body and the materialized form. Okay? I know it doesn't seem real, man, but like, first you experiment with the hypnagogic state, then you realize you will begin to feel the floating of your etheric double, whether you slip into dreams or not. Second, you start to get out of body and you start to move around in your etheric double. That's the second goal, right? Third goal, actually affect something in the physical world. I've been saying this forever, and people are doing it. But if they go around and talk about it, right, people are going to think they're crazy. Matter of fact, I don't even think if I really do this for real that I would actually, other than that desk thing, it's embarrassing to talk about on the show, but I know that I did it, you know. So Muldoon goes on to say that this theory might be advanced, that on many occasions at least, it is the medium's astral body which materializes, constituting a duplicate material body of the medium outside the cabinet. Now, should this happen, and it does, what would the skeptic say? The skeptic, he would pronounce the manifestation of fraud and insist that he had examined the medium's flesh and blood body. And to prove his argument, he would stick a hat pin into the wrist of the materialized form, which, of course, would react upon the body of the medium inside the cabinet. And the scar would prove to the skeptic, who knows nothing of repercussion and reaction, that the medium had been, quote, faking it. I do not by any means say that all mediums are genuine, but there is a possibility for a genuine medium to be discredited. If the psychic cable is severed while the astral body is projected, then death to the physical body is the result. This is apparently what takes place in certain seances when the body has been seized, which in such cases proved to be the astral body of the medium. It was prevented, as it were, from being drawn back into the physical, and in some cases, which are on record, I believe the medium has died in the cabinet. Damn, we got to look that up. Did that really happen? Because that's a trip. I'm well acquainted with an old occultist. His name is Carl, I think it's Puful, who told me that on one occasion, a little girl who was sleeping in a hammock outside the stance room while a materialization seance was in progress inside, materialized in a seance room and claimed to be the daughter of a member of the circle who had a spirit daughter about the same age. Yet the form was that of the girl sleeping in the hammock outside and had not been in any way transformed to represent the girl that she claimed to be. And the girl who slept in the hammock knew nothing of it on awakening. Holy shit. So we know that thought can affect the form of the astral body, and it might be possible for some spirit wishing to manifest to impress the unconscious astral body of the medium into a form like its own, and then talk through it. However, this is a subject into which we have not time to enter now. We have gone a long way in our discussion of duplicate motivity, but I believe that it has been worth our while. And then the next chapter, he goes into the purpose of sleep. I'm fascinated by this stuff, man. What's up, Sacred Sequence Tarot? So I'm only saying that if I can get people to these three places, like, this would change a lot. You know, I don't think you have to practice magic per se to do this stuff, but there is a lot of esoteric material that explains all of this. And this guy, obviously Muldoon, back in the 20s, the only people that he could talk to about this stuff were in the occult. Monroe, not so much. And nowadays, there are people who are just into the out-of-body experience and astral travel that aren't really into occult subjects. They just want to be able to do those things. But I'll say this. If you get to a point where you've done the hypnagogic exercises, you've felt the floating of your etheric double, you've moved around in your etheric double or peeled yourself out of body, right? You're going to want to try to affect the physical world eventually, I promise you. It's going to become, I mean, you're not going to convince anybody this is real, so you're going to have to lay off that. You can convince me, but once you do it enough, you're going to get so curious about the rest of it, especially the physical world. Can I move something on the desk? Can I beat on the desk? Or you could spend time flying around, going around your neighborhood or trying to spy on people or whatever. But you're naturally going to be curious about the abilities that you're going to be able to do, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, we went well over the showtime, but I think everybody should get this book. This is like the OG book of astral travel. Let me tell you the title of it again. It's called Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvan J Muldoon. Published in the 1920s. Author of Your Psychic Powers and How to Develop Them, Higher Physical Development, Modern Psychic Development, etc. Yeah. February 1929, August 1929. Anyways, we got to roll out of here. I'm sorry about the Explorers project. That didn't really produce a whole lot of results, but they're still all really fascinating to listen to. And there are so many Explorer audios. But I myself at this time am more interested in not so much channeling, but the people that are moving around in their, what he calls phantoms or etheric doubles, and I found some more Thomas Campbell audio, so I'll listen to them, and if I find something cool, I'll share them with you. And I'll be putting stuff out for before the weekend's up for the Patreons and the supporters. You guys make sure there's links to support and donate in the description. You guys can join the Patreon or the membership at ltvpodcast.shop. The only difference there is at the shop, you get access to like members specified gear. Okay. And I'll also be putting out stuff for the YouTube members too. Thank you, all of you guys, for listening tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I love you. Michael Domek, we are all here with you. You guys sending positive vibes out for him too. He's going to his father's funeral tomorrow morning, and he's been really. I got to be honest with you. This guy, him, and a few other people have kept the show alive. Man, he's been a real good friend to me and a supporter, and yeah, I love you, man. I look forward to hanging out with you. Anyways, yeah, I'll be putting stuff out this weekend and working on trying to make it better. Real quick, though, before I go, does the camera look better than it did before? Can somebody tell me that in chat? Like, is it... I know the microphone's still a little fuzzy when I pull up white pages on the internet, but the rest of it looks a little better, right? Yeah? Okay. All right. All right. Good night, y'all. Sweet dreams.
Into the sea, would you die for me, baby?